Phineas Mojapelo says displaying the old South African flag demeans and impairs the dignity of the majority of South Africans. Newsroom Africa's Sipha Kema was at the Equality Court covering that judgment and in fact has been tracking this particular story for quite some time throughout the processes in the courts. Sipha, thank you. So what were the arguments that were being advanced for and against the use of this flag?
Well, there were three applicants that actually were for not really what you would say banning of the flag, but for lack of a better word, banning of the flag. That was the first applicant was, of course, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, second applicant being the South African Human Rights Commission. And then we're looking at the respondents who were opposing this. The first one was the AfriForum, and then the second one was FAK. Now, with the arguments brought forward, you have the Nelson Mandela Foundation saying that this flag shouldn't be displayed publicly just like that, especially with what happened on Black Monday in 2018, where people, where they were protesting, while they were protesting, they were waving the flag about. This flag represents bad things for South Africans, especially for people who have lost their loved ones during apartheid and people who have lived through oppression. So for them seeing that flag, it reminds them of apartheid, and also it's a form of hate speech. And then this is where AfriForum came in saying that no, this is not hate speech. In fact, by saying that people are not publicly allowed to display this flag is actually infringing on freedom of expression. Then you have FAK saying, we're coming to preserve the Afrikaans people's culture here. Now you are taking a part of our culture away, because for some of us, it represents culture.
Sure. And interestingly, there was an interesting argument in the mix there somewhere that said actually, rather than being a divisive symbol, this flag actually can be a unifier.
That's true. I mean, he came up with two reasons. The first reason was it's unifying in terms of when the British, as you know, the first flag in South Africa was the British flag. That was removed when the now old flag that is being debated about came in to say that we're no longer under the British control, the British rule now. So then this is the new flag. But then the flag that they're talking about now is saying we unified, you know, with the English and also the Boer people that were here in South Africa. So it's a form of unity. But also, second part that they said, when a statement was read from Mr. Hatang, who's the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, stating how that flag made him feel when he saw that flag being raised and displayed publicly, and that it brought back emotions that he no longer wanted to feel, and also reminded him of the time when his grandmother would go to work and white children would come out on the streets and they would call her a bobian, which means a monkey. So that's what they say. But then now FAK is saying, but then instead of looking at it in that way, why don't you look at it in a form of how far we've come as people? Because they don't go out on the streets screaming, there comes a monkey anymore. So instead, that's how this should be seen as a form of unification.
So let's get to the crux then of the decision by the Equality Court.
Yes.
And a lot hung on the question of the use of the words
yes.
In the Equality Act. What did the judge have to say? Exactly.
When it comes to hate speech, AfriForum was, of course, opposing, saying that this is not hate speech. Hate speech is what is said, it's words. These are not words, this is a symbol. So the judge went on and he actually made reference to the United States case, if you remember, with the Confederation flag, stating that, you know, with what it reminds people, what it invokes in certain people who no longer want to remember that certain past and what it means. He's saying that, why are they not instead displaying the new South African flag? Why the old? What are the intentions behind that? So that means that they don't want reconciliation. Instead, it's used as a weapon of insult, to insult and undermine the reconciliation process and how people feel about apartheid. So just to summarize it, that's what he really, in essence, said, to say that this flag actually does represent hate speech.
In fact, I believe we can actually listen to the judge delivering the judgment there. So let's do that before we continue our conversation.
In terms of Section 21(2) of the Equality Act, it is declared that, subject to the proviso in Section 12 of the Equality Act, any display of the old flag constitutes A, hate speech in terms of Section 10(1) of the Equality Act, B, unfair discrimination on the basis of race in terms of Section 7 of the Equality Act, C, harassment in terms of Section 11 of the Equality Act. There is no order as to costs.
So that was the judge there delivering that particular judgment, and as we were saying, a lot of the debate was around whether Section 10 of
Yes.
the Equality Act actually envisages anything other than words, because the word that is used in the phrasing there says the use of words that can cause harm is prohibited. But now, what was the reaction outside? What did the Nelson Mandela Foundation have to say?
Now, we got to speak to the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation, Selo Hadang, and he actually said that although they were fighting against the public display, they did not want this banned. So just to give you more on what he said, we actually have a bite of what he said and his reactions on behalf of the foundation.
The judgment is very clear that we did not say the flag should be banned. And I want to use this again, and I want to emphasize that we did not say that. And the judge did not say the flag is banned. He said gratuitous display, if it's not for art, for artistic purposes, if it's not for dramatic, whatever you want to then communicate, you can. But where you just, because you are disaffected, because you hold some opinion, and you want to then display the flag, the judgment is clear that in that case you are causing hurt, you are causing harm, and the judge in fact decoupled these things. And of course I'm relying here on our attorney who's here, Rupert Kendi, who actually can give a greater a better explanation of this. So people can display the flag. Except, of course, in an instance where a domestic worker then finds it offensive. I can imagine that my mother would find it offensive because of what I said about the history that we have. And until such time that we actually acknowledge that kind of pain, we're going nowhere.
Now, what's interesting here, Thulas, is that he's talking about unity. He's actually inviting AfriForum to join them actually and unite, because it's a South Africa for everyone reconciliation, right? Which is what the new flag represents. But it does not seem like AfriForum was quite keen. Actually, what Ernest Ritz said was the complete opposite of what Selo Hadang had said.
Former President Nelson Mandela said that if you take away, or if you want to take away the freedom of others, that means that you are yourself a prisoner of hatred. Now, I think the important point to stress from AfriForum's side is this judgment would not directly affect our actions, because as we've said from the beginning of this case, AfriForum does not display the old South African flag, and AfriForum actively discourages people from displaying the flag. So our involvement in this case is not because we have some urge or need to display the flag. Our concern is somewhat different. Our concern is that we have not found sufficient examples yet of government or the state dealing with social issues, albeit important social issues, through the use of the force of the rule of law, or effectively at the end of the day, the police. Our concern is that dealing with social issues like this by banning certain things, at least to a certain extent, or preventing people by law from expressing themselves in a certain way, does not change their opinions. And the problem that we believe the Nelson Mandela Foundation is trying to resolve has not been resolved by simply preventing people from expressing their views if they still hold certain views. So AfriForum's concern and involvement with this matter is because we cherish the right to freedom of expression, and we are concerned. We actually just came from another court case which deals with hate speech, We are concerned about where the line should be drawn between freedom of expression and hate speech.
All right, so that was Ernst Roots from AfriForum there giving his reactions on the steps of the High Court. Sipha Kema, thank you so much for coming through. What a day it's been. And I imagine that we've had this decision, but I don't imagine that the debate
It's not the end.
is done at all.
It is
In
not
fact,
the end.
we have something planned in the coming hour. We will be discussing the implications of that particular judgment.